A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video.
Morning everyone, fantastic to see you all again. Sorry I missed last Sunday. Camper van, back, both taking over at the moment. There will be some camper van videos out. I keep saying this, honestly it's so difficult for me because sitting down is really tricky. I managed to do a video, I managed to do a few bits and pieces, but anything more than that is really tricky. Anyway, onto this. What would I do tomorrow if I started photography? And yeah, I gave this a lot of thought actually, because I think there's probably a lot of things I've learned over the sort of 36 years that I've been doing photography. And I'm going to start with gear, the most controversial of it. I think gear is the thing that people worry about most, probably matters the least, I'd say. So don't worry about it too much. And I'd say, first of all, start with one lens. One lens is good. I recommend something like a 24-200. It's a really good lens to start with. These photos here have all been taken with a 24-200mm lens. And as you can see, they're great. I mean, it's my go-to lens when I do any sort of hiking. The other thing is megapixels. We all talk about megapixels. There's cameras now that have 100 megapixels. I started off with a camera that was 6 megapixels, and these photos here are all taken with either 6 or a 12 megapixel camera, the D100 or the D200. They're fine, they print well, they look good. Obviously, you probably want more than 12 megapixels, but 24 megapixels is by far and away the most, and you just don't need to worry about it more than that. The thing you should worry about when it comes to gear is just what a camera feels like. You know, I got a camera, 1 second, got a camera. So you might want something like this that's a bit more retro, where you can just turn the dials and play a bit with it manually from just turning the dials. I like one with a bit more of a grip on it here. So I like this camera, I think it looks good, but I don't like the ergonomics of it so much because it doesn't have a grip here. You can get grips to fit it, and I have this hand strap if I'm ever using this, because I tend to use it if I'm walking around the city or something like that. Can't get my hand out now. But yeah, feel, ergonomics, how you like the setup of it is most important when it comes to gear. Maybe try a camera if you're starting out in photography, just try a camera first. Okay, the next one, sort of related to gear, but is don't pixel peep. When you get a photo like this, so let's just take a photo, how many people go into the corners of the photo and think, oh, that lens is better than that lens, or I wish I had the f2.8 rather than the f4 lens. As I just said, with the 24-200 lens, it doesn't matter. You know, if you go to a gallery, you go and see a Van Gogh, do you go to the corners of it and think, oh, his brush wasn't as good when he was painting those corners, or the colour was different in the corners? You just don't think about it. It doesn't matter. Obviously, it's good to have the best quality image possible, but the reality is that unless you're printing it absolutely massive and you're entering it into a serious competition, and even in a competition, they're not going to look at that. It just doesn't matter. Okay, so on to some things that I think are more important than those two things. First one is weather. So when I started photography, I probably didn't appreciate how weather and composition and landscape all went together. I used to see good weather and take pictures of the weather, or I go out to a great mountain range, or an amazing tree or something like that, but not worry about the weather. They're interlinked. The two things are obviously really important. You just need to go out in weather, all types of weather around where you live or where you're going to go. Don't worry whether it's raining, it's foggy, it's sunny. Sometimes compositions and landscapes look better in weather you just didn't expect them to look good. I was climbing in Scotland, the Isle of Arran. It was absolutely throwing it down with rain. I was thinking I should turn back, I should turn back. It was so windy you could hardly stand up. I got to the top and I got these photos. It was absolutely stunning. And that happens so many times to me, where I just think, I wish I'd gone out. And which leads me on to the next one really, which is going out, which is sort of linked to the weather. Just go out as much as possible. If you want to improve your photography, the only way to do it, the only way to improve anything that you do is do it more. So you just get your camera and just go out, whether you're on your dog walk or you're just walking with your partner or your family, just take your camera and practice and practice and practice. The more you go out, the more chances you get, and the less you'll be doing this, which is what I do a lot, looking through a window at some amazing conditions. The amount of times I've looked through my bedroom window and thought, I should be out now. And you don't have to be in the most spectacular location, as I've just proved with my book Close to Calm. You know, I live in quite a flat area, but I produce some pretty cool images in my book. Still available, by the way, link in the description below, Close to Calm, all about local photography and my love of local photography. And all these photos were taken at my local woodland in Alderley. You know, you can see here me walking with pebbles. It's such a fantastic location. And it's fantastic because I've been there many, many times and I know where to go and to get the best photos. So going out as much as possible, so important. Probably the most important thing of anything that I'll tell you in landscape photography. One more thing on that is when I go on workshops with people, that's when I tend to find that you get the best opportunities to get good photos. I've got so many good photos from just being on workshops with people because you're going out, you're forced to go out all the time because obviously people are paid to come on a workshop. You're going to go out whatever the weather, and that's when you get the best photos. So yeah, just do that as much as possible. Okay, the next one is composition. Composition is a tricky thing. When you start photography, you think, composition, what's that? It's hard, it doesn't come naturally. To most people, it just doesn't come naturally. Some people are lucky and they can just got a really good eye for it. So I would say hone some simple skills, you know, and maybe just think to begin with, just don't worry too much about learning the basics, you know, the rules, like the rule of thirds. I don't use those anymore, but I think it's it's really important to learn those basics. So maybe do those. And then I would think of these three things being the most important things in compositions. If I could tell myself, if I was starting tomorrow, I would think about simplicity, so making sure the photos are as simple as possible. Think about edges and don't get too complicated around the edges. And then also think about separation. It's something that so often I see in photos where people have just overlapped something. So just try and separate. You know, the images I've just shown you now are all pretty good examples of those things. I think that's really important. I think if you can do that, then your composition is going to improve. And if you want to get better at composition, then I have a course, a masterclass, Mastering the Art of Landscape Photography 1 and 2. And at the moment, there's 40% off. I'll put a link in the description. So if you're interested in that, then that can help you get better at landscape photography. Okay, the next one is style. Actually, I know somebody will know a little bit more about style. James? Oh, thanks. And he's brought a cup of tea for me.
Is that okay?
Well, we'll try. We'll try it in a minute.
Okay.
Sit down.
Yeah.
Tell us all about style.
Style.
So seriously, what do you think is important in creating a style? You know, if you're just starting out, if you're telling somebody that's starting photography tomorrow.
I would say the tricky thing about style is it's an easy thing and a tempting thing to rush.
Yeah.
I think. You kind of start on day one and you think, I want my photos to look like that. And that's sort of part of the problem, I think, because it's easy to import a style from somebody else. You can look at one of your favourite photographers and think, I'll just go and shoot where they shoot.
Yeah, that's right. I did that. When I started photography, I remember looking at Flickr and 500px when Instagram wasn't around, and thinking, oh, that guy was amazing. I tried to copy that style, but I don't think that's that. You can do that, can't you? But it's not how you create a style, is it?
It's importing a style rather than creating a style.
Yeah.
And I think the hard truth about having your own photography style is that it comes in time through thousands of points of inspiration.
Yeah.
And, you know, blog posts or documentaries that you see or other photographers' work or films, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, and I've not found a way to bypass that. And also that's kind of the point, you know, if something comes easily and quickly, it's not as it's never going to be as interesting as if it's that makes complete sense, and I completely agree. So just don't rush it. Just it sounds a bit naff, doesn't it? But it'll come to you rather than chasing it, and eventually by experimenting with different things you'll probably find your own style. Right. Do you want that stronger? Because
sugar, you put sugar in?
No.
Right. Sugar.
Yes. So
useless.
sorry.
is useful for something. Editing, so is useful for something. Okay, the next one is editing. So style comes from editing, I think, more than anything else, and it's an incredible way to transform your images. You know, if you look at most of my images, if I look at a before and after on a lot, going to the develop module, if I look at before and after on a lot of these images, then you can see that, you know, a lot of them have undergone a reasonable amount of editing. That one not so much, but yeah, I mean, your raw image is just it's just a flat basic file, and the edit transforms it into something that you want everybody to see. The things that I think are most important in editing are probably, going back to actually Ansel Adams. Let me get his book. Where's my Ansel Adams book? Yeah, so I mean, both in the negative, but mostly in the print, you know, he used to talk about dodging and burning a lot and zonal systems, but, you know, just the things that he mentioned that are really important are just highlighting areas of your images, bringing the shadows darker where that might be, or lightening them up where that might be important, or, you know, brightening up the areas that you want to lead the viewer through the image. So, you know, practice dodging and burning, but just practice editing and try different things. As James said, it'll take a while, I think, to get your style going. So you've just got to, you know, just not force it. Okay, the next thing I hear all the time is everybody says, how do I get sharp images? When I publish a sharp image video, it always does incredibly well because people care so much about getting sharp images. The reality is, though, if you get your image in focus, so I'll put a link here of how best to focus and some focusing techniques, and you know, I've got your camera steady, and you know, you have it on a tripod, although don't leave your camera on a tripod all the time. Coming back to composition, if you put your camera on a tripod as soon as you arrive somewhere thinking I'm going to get a steady sharp image, then you're going to miss the more important thing, which is getting a good composition. So only put it on a tripod when you're ready to take the photo and you've got the exact position of the photo. But you know, if it's in focus and it's steady, then everything else is going to be fine. You don't need to go and mess with sliders and sharpening and all that and do all these sharpening filters that you can get. They just do not matter. I never touch anything to do with sharpening with any of my photos. Hand on heart, never. You just don't need to, and people get really carried away with it. So don't worry about it. So another really important thing is settings. I think this is very, very important. And this comes down to just understanding your camera. You know, knowing what settings are best to use. Again, I'll put another link here to help you out with some settings. And I think that comes down to just practice. So going into your garden, trying different things, you know, deciding whether you want to shoot on aperture priority or manual, fully manual, understanding, you know, depth of field and the settings of particular lenses and how changing the aperture is going to affect the depth of field. You can practice all that in your garden. You really, a friend of mine, Morten Hilmer, said to me that he used to blindfold himself and practice using his camera so it just became muscle memory. And that's so important, so that when the light just kicks off and it looks amazing, you've got a camera that you understand and you know exactly what how you're going to use it. So yeah, so that's important with settings. The final thing I want to mention is printing. I mean, my book's a good example of that because, you know, we've got some amazing prints in here, and that's why I love making books so much, because it's just so nice to just get a book. But you should print your own photos, you know, just... that wasn't good. So just getting your photo in print, you know, just like this, just looks absolutely amazing. There's something, it's just like the final product, you know, that it's for me, it's the output of doing photography as a print. And I can't stress enough how important it is. When you've got a good photo, just get it printed. You'll really love it and you'll appreciate it more. And you'll be able to understand your photography a little bit more when you start to print as well. You can do it with a lab, or you can, you know, get your own printer, which is absolutely fun. Costs a fortune in ink and paper, but it is really good fun. And when you've got your prints, maybe you want to sell them. So a great platform to do that is this week's sponsor, and that is Squarespace. Squarespace make it super easy to set up a website, create a domain as well, and you can then have a website where you can be in total control of your images, but you can also maybe set up an e-commerce site where you can actually sell your prints, and you can maybe also sell things like workshops as you're improving your photography and want to teach others. So go and check out Squarespace. You can go to squarespace.com/Nigel and get 10% off. And that's it for this week. Hope if you are starting out photography, it goes well. Thanks ever so much for watching. And until a Sunday in the future, hopefully I'll have my camper van soon. I've got a big project planned.